from California, it's maybe 6-7 hours, but like from me, it'd be about 11 hours with the mask on. Might be a long ride. I'm not sure. I don't mind the mask in general, but like with.
Yep, show start now, Spencer. Right. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. It's episode 576. It's our Friday roundtable show. You can join us on the WP-Tonic Facebook page and join the discussion live, or view us as we bicker and give truth to the Facebook and tech stories of the week. I've got a great panel. I've got I think I've rustled up some good stories. I think it could be a good show. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves, and then we're going to go straight into it. So, Heather, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Yes. Hi, I'm Heather Wild-Renzi. I am the Unicorn Whisperer and Digital Solutions Lead of The Difference.
Difference. I do like that. Vito, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Vito. I'm the founder of Atarim.io. We help web freelancers and agencies deliver projects fast and streamline their communications with their clients and with their team.
Great. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Sally Getch, the WP fangirl, organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup, and currently just barely getting acquainted with consciousness.
There we go. And got John. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
And John, SEO consultant from lockdownseo.com.
And I got Spencer. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Not really. I'm kidding. It's Spence from LaunchFlows.com.
There we go. Before we go into the first story, I want to talk about one of our fabulous supporters of the show, sponsors of the show, and that's Kinsta Hosting. Kinsta is a specialized WordPress hosting provider. If you've got a performance site for yourself or for a client, example, WooCommerce, a large membership site, a learning management system, you should be looking at Kinsta. They can provide the performance and expertise that you're looking for. I suggest you go over to the site, look at their very competitive plans. I suggest that you should buy one. And if you do that, and please do, tell them that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. It really helps Kinsta, and it really does support the show. Your support is much appreciated. So let's go in to the first story. WordPress 5.7 introduces drag drop for blocks, patterns, streamlined out. I can't keep. This title is just bloody too long. Sally, what did you think of this one?
I think it's progress. I mean, as an article, yes, could maybe use some editing, but it's interesting. I noticed that somebody posted an article about something small but huge just happened in WordPress. There's finally drag and drop with the blocks. What I've noticed a lot of comments on are
I'll tell you one thing, Sally. I never expected in the beginning of 2021 to still be talking about Gutenberg and major updates. I thought it was all going to be done and finished with a long time ago.
Oh gosh, this is WordPress. When is anything done? I mean, when is anything done on the web? It keeps changing. But I
didn't expect to be talking about drag and drop in 2021.
Well, yes, that seems like really it should not have taken that long to get there. And a lot of the things that are being added in are in terms of the core blocks, and I'm glad they're adding them in, but they've been missing for so long that lots of other people have gone out and created solutions for them, which is also sort of true about the one-click HTTPS, right? It's like, well, how many websites do I have really simple SSL installed on, and do I need to remove them all now?
I saw a sneak peek of Sarah was writing an article for next week's Tavern, And the headline read, with the next update of Gutenberg is now introducing Control C is copy, Control V is paste. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah.
How revolutionary.
Copy paste is now going to be included in the next Gutenberg update. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. And you're not supposed to talk about it yet, but just in case you were worried about it, it's coming soon in April.
First of April, eh?
This version of WordPress 5.7 has two major significant things. One, it's the first version in quite some time that didn't break a wrath of plugins, or at least so far so good, which was nice. As far as the HTTPS, it's convenient and probably about time that they got rid of the need for you to fix your SSL with an outside plugin when you've got a site that's not using HTTPS. But the block editor stuff, the Gutenberg stuff, I want so much for my relationship with Gutenberg to move to the next level. I really want to be in a long-term relationship with Gutenberg. And every time I go out to lunch or dinner with it, it keeps disappointing me. It keeps reminding me why I have a nonstop affair with Elementor. Because everything I want to do is hard in Gutenberg, where it's just so easy.
Does it disappoint you as much as I do?
Elementor had me at hello, and Gutenberg just keeps basically disappointing me by revealing what my relationship long-term with it is going to be like. And I'm just finding this so troublesome that they keep dribbling out things instead of having like one big, let's get it all fixed one weekend kind of event, that this is literally a news headline. Drag and drop is a feature? Oh my God.
Fixing it all in a weekend is a little bit optimistic.
Just saying,
come on,
yes,
Vito.
Vito's expression is such that we must hear from him.
Drag and drop is a news event.
I'm getting tired with myself. I keep kicking Gutenberg. It's like kicking an old dog. I'm starting now to.
My husband said once that clearly WordPress has mastered the trick of providing something so crappy that introducing a very minor usability change gets you applause. This is sometimes true. I remember when they were launching 3.0 and finally bringing in the menu system, literally the entire room applauded on hearing that, because the menus had been such a pain before.
Can I bring in something else that I don't know if we have? Wait, hold on. I'm very spicy today. Give me a break. Shut up. I want to bring in another thing that we may or may not have the story on, but it's about Matt Mullenweg going head to head with Ben Pines in public over the copyright issues or the alleged stealing of the names of things that are not actually his, but he claims are his. Because I found it amusing that, like, good for the goose, good for the gander. You can't use the word WordPress or WP a certain way, and that he feels that the block editor is a thing of it. But here, why not we just call this out what it is? It would be newsworthy if maybe Elementor or somebody goes ahead and tries to copyright drag and drop, or editor.
I think like Apple would be out there saying, "Yo, the drag and drop shit, we invented that."
I mean, I'm just saying that would make it interesting, because the fact that somebody's doing the thing that is ubiquitous, like it literally, what are we, 21 years into this thing already? I mean, WordPress is 15 years old. It's like, are we really still having a conversation that they can't figure out drag and drop until this late in the game? And the only thing that makes it interesting is that while that's happening, Matt is trying to get into a pissing contest over, we own the name or the common use name over certain features like this, which is just absurd because they haven't gotten their shit together yet on this. How can he claim he owns it when everybody else has perfected it, especially Elementor? So I, for one, look forward to that kind of
page editing thing of how they target things on Google and stuff. Is that the point?
There was an article, I can pull it up, that was basically Matt going into one of the channels. I can't remember what I was pissing on Ben Pines about how Elementor was using the marketing terms for SEO.
for
full page-
listeners
full
and
page
for,
editing.
for
Which
listeners and
competitors do all the time, including each other's names.
We
So,
talked about it last week. I have to.
Can I'm going to insist to interrupt now. I want to get some of the other panelists' points. And first of all, Ben Pines will be coming on the show in the near future for a special interview, listeners and viewers, and we will be discussing all that Spencer has brought up as part of the interview. It should be really interesting. Over to you, Vito. Am I being really cruel to Gutenberg, or is it just
really like when it comes to this? It's just a tool that is still being developed. It's just being developed in public, where there's other tools that have already did it. So like I always come back to the point that I see the need for why Gutenberg became a thing, like in the core of WordPress, and it should be like that. But I'm still using Elementor. Really, I'm on the same boat as Spence. As every time I try once in a while, it's just not. It just doesn't. It can't compete, and I end up installing a bunch of plugins to get basic stuff like drag and drop. Where in Elementor, I copy. They figured out copy. They took copy paste to a new level. When you can like take the whole section and just drop it on a new page with just copy paste. What I did like about this update is the colors. The new colors are so nice and smooth, and I think it was well overdue. That really got me this week when I was going into our website, and the guys updated it, and I was like, oh, something feels better. And
thanks. I'm just gonna. What do you reckon, Heather? Got any view about this?
I still hate Gutenberg. I still don't use it, and I still turn it off whenever I'm working on a site.
There you go. That was straightforward, to the point.
It's just not ready. They're gonna get there, but it's
that's why in the repository. I mean, first of all, the repository is broken, but it says 5 million plus active installs. Now, we don't know if that's 5 or 40 million, but I guarantee you it's more than 5 million. The number one plugin is the classic override plugin. Yeah. Why? Just like Heather. I mean, I get in there and so desperate. I go, let's do it this time with this new client. Let's just try it. Come on, we can do it. And it's like immediately I'm thrown into a corner and blindfolded. And
there's no doubt that when it comes to performance, and especially what we talked just before we went we went live, Gutenberg is the way to go, at least at the moment, until the other page builders figure the things out and get to that same optimization level. It is like blazing fast compared to anything else that is out there, but it's just not usable enough. Like the usability is what matters, and we're using strong servers anyway. So it's not that we're using like $5 a month kind of hosts where the performance matters that much. Like when you're using a proper server, like these shows sponsor. Go on, Jonathan.
Right, exactly.
Go on.
Oh. Any of the modern hosts that's not doing varnish caching, jamming the screws. And you bring at one point, not to geek out a little bit, but one of the things we do for people, let's say, who have sales pages, there's a free tool that I'll show today for my advice that makes a one page out of a site. So let's say you've got a need for blazing speed, but you're using Elementor or Divi even at something. You can literally, okay, somebody's literally.
You're muted.
Somebody's muted him. I've been wanting to do that for quite a while during this show.
It is your power as the moderator.
I'm going to start using it if he keeps on. John, let's wrap this up. John, what did you think? You're muted.
Yeah. So the biggest things that are in this version of WordPress is you can you no longer need like a plugin like really simple SSL. You can one-click mixed media from HTTP to HTTPS. The other thing is they automatically lazy load iframes like they did for images a couple of versions ago. So those are the biggest things. But yes, I share your pain with Gutenberg. I'm doing a WordPress.com site for a smaller client right now, and it is very fast on the front end, but I hate using it. It's terrible. I can't stand it.
Right, on to the next story then.
Wait, let me
Yes,
throw
I'm
this
just
out.
perverse.
Because the guy who's coming to block my driveway needed to tell me that. There's a Chrome extension, it's free, called One Page. What essentially happens, let's say you have a client, you're using a page builder, even Divi, which is really, really, really loaded, but easy. You can essentially take that one page that you've already designed, and as long as it doesn't have any kind of real heavy duty dynamic stuff, it will generate an HTML block that you just copy that block, put it into Classic Editor. It is exactly the page. Or if you want, you can even put it inside your theme template. And the page, even if it was like 14 seconds to load in Divi, it becomes a static, instantly loading page, like 1 second. So that's the way that we've been doing it in the past.
Does it inline the CSS or what?
Everything inline, it literally makes this enormous all-inline block of HTML, but the browser swallows that and spits it out so fast your eyes spin. And it's as simple as just going to the page and clicking one page. So the point is, in the meantime, rather than worrying about the speed difference of Gutenberg at the expense of like the torment it causes you, build a page the way you want it with your favorite page builder, click one page output on the Chrome extension, stick that into Classic Editor, and get on with your life.
Yeah, right, that's good. On to the next story. Twitter is reinventing itself. I think this came, did it come from you, Sally? I think
it did. It did. It's just people have probably noticed there's been a lot of conversation about Clubhouse, and simultaneously there's this Twitter Spaces thing that I've heard about, not done anything with, and then super follows. You can, pay to follow people. And I'm like, yeah, right.
Hi.
Yes, it's a bizarre kind of thing. But so it's, yes. And they just acquired.
So, Sally, do you think this is all linked to a certain previous president leaving, being banned from Twitter? They found one of their biggest pushers of activity as being banned from the platform. Do you think it's basically a platform that's still trying to find?
I think Twitter is still kind of trying to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up, but that's been something it's been doing for a long time. And
it's a bit almost as long as Gutenberg.
Longer than Gutenberg. Twitter's been around far longer than Gutenberg. It
feels that way. Actually, I'm not going to interrupt anymore, but it just feels that way.
Yes, and so they bought Review, which is a little newsletter that I've known some people who've done, and I'm not sure how they're planning to sort of weave all of that together, I think they're trying to keep up, but I don't know. It's like most of these newer things they brought in, I haven't had any interest in, and their naming team has got to go with the fleets.
Exactly. So Heather, I think there's something there with Twitter, but they just don't seem to be able to. I don't know what really. It's just a sense that it's a bit of a lost sheep, really. Am I on the right track, or am I being very unfair, Heather?
You might have noticed, like anyone that's on social media lately, or that has been using it for a while, and people have stopped interacting, like they've stopped hitting the like button, they've stopped commenting, but that doesn't mean they're stopped consuming. So I have a lot of followers on Instagram. I have a lot of followers on Twitter, and and I even have a lot of followers on Facebook, and those are my main, I guess on LinkedIn too. But like my main thing is on Twitter, and just because people aren't like resharing, aren't liking your posts, like if you look in your analytics, there are a lot of views still. And I think it's because people are doom scrolling now. Like they're looking through, they're reading, and we're all just we're burnt out. And so I think what Twitter's doing by adding these new things, it's for these content creators that are wanting some kind of analytics that match up to something that they're used to. They want these subscribers. They want to see this. Even on YouTube, like if you don't do something live, then you're not going to get any views of your videos. Like live is the only way to get views. Like if you look at a YouTube video that you've posted, you probably get like 5 views, but like, yeah, I mean, but if you watch it live, you could have like 2,000, 3,000, to 25,000 viewers live, just because people are like, oh, I see this thing right now. And you have to capture that attention. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's great that Twitter is coming up with all of these things. Like Fleets is, yeah, I mean, it's a weird name, but what else are they going to come up with? They want to have something that rhymes with tweet. And
what's that? I actually lost that. What is that supposed to do?
They're like
fleeting
Instagram
thought
stories. They're little video bits. But yeah, I mean, come on, Fleet is like an infamous brand of
yeah, so yeah.
Oh,
it's a fleeting thought. That's what they meant it to be.
Oh, right. Oh, God.
It's like you put it there and it's gone. But that's what Twitter is right away. I mean,
I have many of those, Heather.
And like I've experimented with using because Twitter is where I put all my stuff, really. Like I barely use my Instagram. Generally, if there's something on Instagram, it's because like my marketing people put it there for me. So like they're like, oh, this was a nice picture I saw on your camera roll. I'm gonna put this on Twitter.
It must be nice. It must be nice to have marketing people.
Yeah.
Right, there we go. Vito, have you got marketing people?
I do.
How the other half live?
It's the same as Heather. I haven't been on Instagram for like 5 years, but I do go on Twitter and I go on Facebook. What I see here is just a logical step from Twitter to try and capture some of the lost traffic. Really, like Twitter is it's a distribution platform for content that is generated or being created elsewhere, and it's just being promoted on Twitter. So why not? Why would they send people out to OnlyFans or to Patreon or these kind of stuff where people are already monetizing content for years now? Then they go over to Twitter and tweet, go to my Patreon account and sign up over there. So I think it's a logical step to kind of rein it in. And even with what's it called? This latest craze.
Clubhouse.
Yeah, I know a number of people who are quite interested to see what the Twitter Spaces evolve into. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I still interact on Twitter and Instagram, but I've not even been remotely interested in Clubhouse.
I've been there for a few times. It's just very time consuming, and I rather focus on stuff that,
on actually building your company.
Exactly. So I know that I have
what a revolutionary idea.
I'm meeting you guys at 4:30, so I'll be there. But I'm not gonna check whenever Jonathan goes online and I gotta stop everything and watch it, because it's gonna be gone. So it's not really much of a platform for me.
God, I'm so upset. I'm so upset, Vito.
Well, for you, I would.
Thank you, Vito. Thank you, John. What do you reckon, John? I just sometimes, I don't do that much on Twitter because I feel I'm too spread out thin as it is. I'm trying to do more YouTube, John. Trying to build up this Facebook group. When Spencer, who said he was going to really help me, he's not been helping me on the group that much. Get on with it, Spencer, for God's sake.
I'm posting more than you yet.
You said you were going to be all over it like a rash. You know, this
We
rash
only have 12 people on there right now. They've seen 3 posts from me in 3 days. And
we're up to 17 now.
17.
Please join us, listeners and viewers, on the Facebook group. So what do you reckon, John?
That would involve using Facebook.
Well, that's why we haven't. That's why I haven't talked to you about it. But you're on Instagram, though. You stretched to that. John, I just feel a bit spread out thin as it is. But what do you reckon about Twitter?
Oh, I love Twitter, but this article is about Spaces, which is similar to Clubhouse, if I got that right.
Yeah.
The super follows, which is similar to Patreon. I can't see that taking off because I mean the whole appeal of Twitter is you can just put stuff out there and interact. I think it would be, you know, cutting virality off to try and charge people for special tweets or whatever. And then the other thing, the fleets. I think Twitter is a good product, but the problem is they have to come up with ways to monetize it. And the last 4 or 5 years is the first time that they ever turned a profit, and they want to keep that going so they can continue to grow. So that's why you see them trying different things. I think like Periscope is like good, but you know, it's not really a way to monetize it. They have to come up with different ways to make money besides advertising. So that's why you see this stuff. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think you're
I'm
right
not opposed
on
to
there.
them making money. I mean, you know, I like Twitter. I want them to be around. But yeah, everybody's sort of fighting over the same ad dollars and trying to figure out a business model. And this has been true of an awful lot of online services.
I want them to. Well, actually, I want them to be successful. I want them to find an ad model that works because the more competition, the more pressure. You know, at the present moment, it's totally dominated by Facebook and Google. So we need more platforms that can effectively compete with those two monoliths. When in my mind, they need splitting up, but that's a whole another discussion. So I think we're going to go for a break. We come back, got some more great stories. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. Spencer's feisty. Heather's direct. Sally's just about with us. Vito's wondering why he's on here. And John's just my friend and he's just forgiven me for this madness. So there we go. So we go, before we go got Vito with us. And Vito, you got this virtual WordPress summit coming up, haven't you? You know, it sounds really exciting. You want to tell the listeners and viewers a bit about it?
Yes. So we're bringing back the Web Agency Summit, the second year in a row. Amazing content. We got 36 top expert sessions from friends and friends and family in the space that are talking about how to build and grow and thrive when it comes to building a freelance or a web agency business in our space. That is the focus, and that is basically the differentiation between what we're trying to do and what most events in the space are doing. It's not so much about how to use the tools and how to use the technologies and stuff like that. There is a bit about the main topics, but really from a client delivery point of view. So even if we're talking about SEO, it's how to optimize your clients' websites. If we're talking about LMS, we have Chris coming in and talking about how to build an LMS agency. And then we're going into scale and thriving, where we brought some massive agencies and employees within agencies that are talking about how does that life look like. If you're aspiring to get there, probably should know how the day-to-day looks like so that you can make an educated decision. It's not for everyone, but it's really interesting to see what people that manage to build an agency of 50 people and up think when they're reflecting on their journey and all of that kind of processes. And we also managed to partner up with some massive brands in our space that includes from GoDaddy to WP Engine, Elementor. You talked about Ben. There's going to be speaking there as well. WordPress.com, Groundhog, which is a friend of the show as well. So a whole bunch of awesome companies have joined forces with us to bring this to life. And essentially, this is the biggest event in the WordPress space. Last year, we had 5,700 attendees, while the next runner-up is around 2,500. So it's like by far the biggest gathering of people in our ecosystem. It's going to be a week long, the last week of this month, and it's free to join. So come on in and join the party at atarim.io/summit.
Oh, right. Sounds fantastic. I will be joining it myself. All right. So let's go into the next story, and I'm going to let John comment on it first. And that's WordPress out of touch with publishers' needs. And John, before I throw it over to you, I kind of noticed that it's also been linked to people criticizing Elementor and Divi and some of the page builders, and people saying that speed is going to be all important, and they've linked it to this, what this story is linked to, because Google's making it quite clear that speed's going to be really important. What's your view about it? Because I know that you keep your eye on all this really quite closely. So what's your view about all this, John?
Yeah, so for people who don't know, the Core Web Vitals boost is something that Google has announced is dropping in May of this year. And of course, a lot of people in SEO are, making it out to be like this big thing. I still believe that content and people getting to their goal is going to be the most important part. But I think there's going to be many, many factors that are still more important than this one, like links, your link profile, and whether your website has a record of satisfying searches. I do think speed is important. Now, this particular article is talking about WordPress as itself, people complaining. And I think it addresses a really real concern. And this has always been a weakness with WordPress, is that however people have their site set up and however they interact with WordPress, they think that that's all, under the banner WordPress, whether they have Visual Composer or WP Bakery or Elementor or Gutenberg, or whether they're on a cheap host or an expensive performant host. It's all WordPress to them. But it's a tool that has a lot of different configuration possibilities. And that's the thing, is you've always been able to build a site in many different ways. But I think this highlights something that the regular population of people who build sites for themselves can't differentiate between all these different things. This said that Gutenberg is bloated with the different block patterns and loading the different JavaScript. I saw a friend of the show, Curtis McHale, was talking about that the other day on Twitter. He was mentioning that he was working on a site, and there were a whole bunch of different block plugins like in there. And this is, people are just trying to find a tool to do what they want it to do. And I think this has always been the problem with the DIY part of WordPress, is people will just install whatever because they just want it to do what they want it to do. And that does affect performance. I mean, and not everybody can afford to go hire a web developer, whenever they get it together. So that's really what I got out of this article most of all.
Oh, thanks for it. What do you reckon, Spencer? Because I noticed in the past like 10, 12 days on YouTube and in the general WordPress comment ecosystem? There's been a lot of talk about all this.
I mean, I would leave it to John's opinion and expertise with regard to what effect there may actually be in SEO results from Core Vitals. But I will say I've always been preaching the end result to the user part of the equation, which is to say, I think that people with the varying degrees of devices that they interact with on the internet, going on the mobile phone to the desktop to the laptop to the kids are on the school, so now my connection speed is slow. There's so many variables with the way that people interact that as long as somebody's website, especially a dynamic membership or e-commerce, falls into that window of it feels normal, I think everything else is complete and utter bullshit. And the fact that Google games everybody against each other over these minutiae of details in their algorithm is just further emphasis of how it's almost like political control. We've talked before about when they tried to make AMP a necessity. If you don't have AMP, the sky will fall. And yet it didn't fall when nobody did it. It's the same thing here. Like they just keep moving to another thing to focus on to get everybody geared up that somehow they're the the messiah of information. And we're the pariahs. And it makes no difference because literally speaking of tens of thousands of clients or customers, we've never seen anybody, not one person, fail to sell or not sell their products or services because of a difference of a couple seconds of their page loading. And in some cases, I've had atrociously bad hosting environments for clients that are doing 7 figures of sales every year. And people are like literally sitting there watching the wheels go round to buy the product. They don't care. They want the product. So this to me is just, it's true, but kind of like discussing, how fast does it take your text message to get to your mom or something kind of a thing. Like, is it going to matter in the end? Probably not.
Yeah, I was kind of so shocked by when I looked on some of the leading YouTube commentators in the WordPress space, and they're shocked that page builders add weight. And I thought, these conversations get recycled. It's a bit like when Dreamweaver was out there, or what was the Microsoft bloody piece of crap?
Front page.
Front
page
of crap
with Mr. Paperclip.
Oh, God, I'm getting hot again. You got that picture of Matt that you can put behind you, Spencer? That get me really hot and bothered.
He only shows up like a Ouija board when you least expect it. You have to conjure him up.
Yeah, that gets me going. But it's back to those conversations. It will never. Well, it shouldn't be. It will never be good as a professional web developer, designer, really optimizing all the code, and it just won't, But on the other hand, if you haven't got the money, what you're going to do. But it's the people that do have the money and they still don't want to spend it because they're so tight, What do you reckon, Heather? What did you reckon about all this and speed and page builder?
This is the whole thing that everyone's always like worried about. They never understand that they think their site is going to be perfect and fast, and it never is. And then they yell at the developer for when they were like, oh, I ran a speed check and my site got a D. And you're like, well,
you're the one that wanted the video in the background and the scrolling move text, going across the page and the parallax movements. You wanted to throw the kitchen sink into it.
And you're like, and you gave me all of these like 12 megapixel, 12 gigabit images that you want fully loaded. And you don't know why your site isn't running properly. So, this is the, and then we of course have to put like the Smush It plugin.
I found that new Elementor library that I insist plugin, and I insist that you installed it. You've asked us to install 7 libraries, and they're all loaded in. That's why your Elementor can't load itself. He's gone pink.
Very interesting. Yes. Although I think one thing is that I found this article just like very snide and spiteful and kind of unfair. I think John's take was important, that this is a common mistake that people make, that you can just like go to the WordPress forum and say, my site got a bad score. Why is this happening? And, the response from the person on the forum was, it could have been a little more expansive, but, it's been like, you can't answer that question without knowing everything that's on the site.
Asking me why fate, is there fate or is there God?
Yes, it's kind of like somebody phoning you up and saying, what's wrong with my car? And you're like, I don't even know what model car it is or what kind of trouble you're having with it. Some questions are hard to answer. So I think that bit was, was kind of unfair, taking this, remark as indicating that WordPress just doesn't care, and it is Google and some other places that have resources. There have been a lot of good articles.
It's about, you get every once a year, you get this attack on WordPress. Oh, it slows, there's better. And I think to myself, well, what do you bloody want? You're getting all these fabulous plugins, this whole ecosystem. A lot of it is free or inexpensive, and it enables you to build up something really rapidly. Now, I was talking to Stephen, who's my co-host on my interview show, and he was saying, he worked with loads of startups, and he said, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building stuff, and we should have just built it in WordPress as a quick proof of concept. And then if we wanted to build it in whatever language afterwards, at least we would have proved the bloody business concept actually worked. But no, we spent months building up, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of investors' money. And I just think it's so unfair on WordPress. You're getting all this fabulous technology for, pennies in the dollar, where normally it would have cost you $10. They just don't put. What do you reckon, Vito? Am I just waffling?
So I think that I agree with both sides, because first of all, WordPress, when you have an empty website, it's fast, right? And you're gonna get to green when there's nothing there. But then it becomes more complicated as you're adding things on there. But then this is also what's causing the problem, what's causing this perception, because it's so easy to slap on 10 different plugins that do the same thing. Like you're talking about the Elementor add-ons, right? You can have like 10 different Elementor add-on plugins just because you wanted one widget from the suite of 40 that each one of them offer. So then you end up in the red. So like finding the balance is what a professional should do, and actually guide the customer to tell them, no, you shouldn't be adding like 7 megabytes of GIFs on the homepage because it's gonna be slow, which I had to have the conversation myself a few times, to say the least. So there is a balance to both sides. That being said, I believe that if you're looking at, and I had this conversation with a lot of clients as well, once they kind of get familiar with whatever speed testing tool, then they become obsessed. And this is just like human nature. We like to have a rating on everything that we do, because we're trained like this in school, like you got to get A. If you're not get A, then your dad is going to get upset, right? So maybe back at your time. Yeah, maybe also a little bit of my time. So everyone wants to get to that.
Well, you're if you don't get those A's at your A plus, and then get into the right university and get the right 2-1 or honors degree. And if you don't get into the right, it never ends, doesn't it? And most of it's
yes,
bullshit.
and let me tell you, you can get into the right colleges and do all of that stuff and still end up with a life you never envisioned.
Right, I agree. I never did that. I never went down. I never did anything standard way. But when it comes to these things, that's what they expect. They see a bar, they see a circle, they want to see it full. They see a number, they want to see it at 100. They see something red, they want to see it green. That's like our human psyche. So, the professional job is to kind of manage this expectation. One of the things that we had to have a lot of conversations with is when WordPress introduced the site help. And then the website is working. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool. But we have 50 plugins, 60 plugins, because that's the functionality needed. So it's not going to be at 100%. That's just the game. You want it? Let's drop 40% of the features, 70% of the features. You're going to get it nice and green. But then you're not going to have a business. So really, people need to take these things into perspective. It's a game of balance, but more than that, it's a game of training the client to know that these things don't mean much. Load the website. Is it fine? Cool. That's really what matters to me, at least at the end of the day. And I don't get distracted by that. Around what you said around building MVPs in WordPress, I think it's such a great idea. And a lot of people don't do that. Through the agency, we had the opportunity of doing this a few times, building MVPs like marketplaces and membership sites and all kinds of stuff like that with WordPress, which was super easy, very quick to iterate. And then once the model was proven, we pass them on to an agency that builds stuff in Laravel, that builds stuff in React and things like that, where you can actually spend $100,000 without getting to any result.
It's so obvious why, it's still resisted in the startup community to some degree. I'm going to go.
It's because we're not cool enough. I do want to put in one thing here that I had actually read before I saw this article, which is that in Gutenberg 10.1, we're actually going to do what, mind you, they should have done from the beginning. CSS styles are only loaded for blocks used on a page. So that will reduce some of the bloat, and I'm all in favor of that. So
Elementor, hopefully part of my discussion with Ben, that's hopefully it's going to be coming up in the near future, is Elementor. I think they understand they're going to have to focus a lot more on performance. And one of the things is you do need a mechanism like what Vito says, you tend to have to load up a whole third-party Elementor library because you just want that one widget that does that thing that you really like. But you need some ability to switch off all the rest of it, because otherwise it just, if you keep loading these libraries in, it just ends up as treacle, doesn't it, Vito?
It's ironic too, because the library of Elementor, having worked with it now, is actually very extensible to allow switches. You'll see in a lot of the add-ons for Elementor that they have an option panel where you can check the boxes to turn on and off the various add-ons. And the core library of Elementor or Elementor Pro could easily do that if they wanted. And they can also have additional options to simplify, let's say, like those optimization plugins, should this even load on a page? Because quite frankly, that's the biggest downside of any of the page builders or even Divi, is that, hey, I got no page builder needs here. And yet when you look in the header and footer, all the JavaScript and jQuery and all the other fonts and so forth are still there. And but
I see that as a balance from the product maker point of view, because imagine this happening that it doesn't load. And then what? You get like 100,000
right.
tickets. People
I mean,
saying,
it definitely, even as it is now, as I would say, somebody who is very proficient, I can say maybe expert in using it. There's still an enormous wealth of tricks you need to have under your belt, especially with things like Elementor having the default kit for the styling, the global styles. 50% of our clients delete that kit accidentally because it shows up in the normal template library. And when that happens, everything stops loading, and you need to know that or understand that. So it's kind of like anything. I've heard of stories like with the Tesla, the self-driving car, that it's got self-driving, but it's not self-driving by default. So you have to actually enable it by paying the premium. So if you get the car, you think it's self-driving, and then you drive up to a schoolyard and just blow up to a stop sign, it will run over the kid if you haven't paid the extra premium to have it enabled. That kind of behavior is...
What happens if the subscription lapse?
That's what I'm saying. That's the kind of stuff where there's like...
I hope you're listening to this, Heather.
There's an assumption of like a feature being a certain way, but then because of the various games of how it's presented, like Gutenberg, why is it even now that the link to view a page that I just created is not visible at the top like the normal editors? I have to go into a submenu. Those kind of
Just
decisions.
have to change the settings so you see the
Oh, please.
admin.
Whatever. The point of the story is like certain things used to be skeuomorphic when the great late Steve Jobs was around. You looked at a picture of a book, it opened up the book thing. Maybe old fashioned, but I just like the idea that things don't require a secret insider knowledge to make it work.
But that's exactly what you're saying. Like if you want to get flexibility, then you got to get deep on settings. And like in most cases, this just creates additional hassle for both sides, because then you got to go to the settings and make sure that you see the URL instead of everyone seeing the URL.
I mean, to your point, which I agree with, the default would be everything's on. And then for those in the knowledge in the developer docs, oh, here's how I can optimize it, but I don't have to go outside to optimize. I would agree that would be the logical thing. Everything's just on and set up. But those decisions are easier for a company like an Elementor because Ben and his team seem very, very, very involved in the user experience. And even when they make a mistake, they admit it and move on. Whereas we're seeing that sort of opposite passive aggressiveness from the automatic thing with regard to the Gutenberg and so forth. Either way, it doesn't matter because I find all this conversation fascinating, but I also remember like yesterday when we were all talking about Flash, right? Or Macromedia, or all these things that have come and gone and come and gone. And in 2 years from now, we're not going to be on browsers like we're today. Maybe a little bit. We're going to be on some other kind of, even the Twitter conversation. I agreed with Heather. I didn't have a comment at the time, but like, I think Twitter is an amazing tool to reach your audience, to just say, here's what's new. But I feel that it's evolved into something that it has to be more authentic, and also you as the individual really have to have certain constraints about it, right? So people can abuse Twitter now by being something they're not and being bots. If it's literally Spencer Foreman validated, that is absolutely me, and I'm going on public record, what an amazing tool. But for the 99% of what it's being used for, it's some jackass with a fake profile trying to stir up trouble. And so those things have to evolve, and I think that's what we're dealing with now.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to at least 4 of these stories, and so I'm going to move on to the next story. It might be a little bit longer. If the panelists need to drop out, I totally understand, but I want to cover at least 4 or 5 of these stories. On to the next one. Heaven's decided. New EU right to repair laws require technology for the last decade. This was a story that you suggested, Spencer.
Right.
What did you like about this one?
So I like to be handy. I've always, I built houses for a living. I like to repair stuff. I'm a fan of this guy, Louis Rossmann on YouTube, who is a certified Apple repairman. He's very outspoken. He lives in New York City.
He is hilarious.
He's hilarious. And he's got his cats. But the point is that there's been a trend which has gotten worse in the United States in particular, led by companies like Apple, but also the major manufacturers.
And Tesla. Tesla
is a major violator of this. But I'm talking like, and there needs to be a distinction here. I give Tesla benefit of the doubt about something to do with the braking system. You should keep people out of there of a car versus you've bought a $1,200 iPhone and now you have a serialized lockdown to the board screen that you can no longer get replaced at your local repair person. But the point is that it's reached a point of madness where whether it be a John Deere tractor or your iPhone or your laptop, where they just keep pumping out more and more lockdown electronics, even for things that they know will disappear and break, like a battery. So it used to be every phone, you could just replace the battery, and that was good for everybody. Now you either can't get to it, you're not allowed to get to it, or it's serialized in a way that literally it won't work unless it comes from the factory. So the EU, as much as I am annoyed by their other laws like GDPR and cookies and all the rest of the stuff, this actually was progressive, and I think the United States has to follow suit. Some states have done so to say, if you are going to make an electronic product, you must provide all the schematics, make it possible to fix and repair it, whether or not you're the certified people or not, and give people that choice. Because once they've paid for the product, it's ludicrous for most consumer things that they are literally prevented from doing basic repair. And it's bad for everybody because like a phone or something with a battery, you got to throw it in the dumpster now. I mean,
yeah, but it just kind of makes you, it's just amazing really, isn't it? But like Apple, they must have looked at all the, all the figures, but the bad feeling this produced, and in the end, the political pushback that it's bound to produce, you think to yourself, why did you decide to go down that road? But they, like I say, they must have looked at all the figures.
They did it for money and to control.
Well, yeah, I mean, I reread Brave New World recently since, my husband was watching the TV series. And something that I hadn't remembered from it was the way that they emphasized disposable items, right? Old things are bad, new things are good. Everything is designed to be thrown away because we need people to consume all the time. And I was like, wow, yes, that was really prophetic, because that is what has happened with a lot of our technology. And it is, because God forbid things last. And I mean, 10 years is a long time for something like a phone or a computer, because the technology evolves so much that you might not want to keep it for 10 years. But, if you can't make a freaking washing machine that lasts even 5 years, that really seems like a problem. And the, locking things down in such a way as to try to force you, it's like, look, either you build a new version of the phone that is enticing enough that everybody will run out and buy it voluntarily, or, STFU and let people go on using their old one as long as they can.
It's not even the first person, it's the secondary market. So for example, when I was in real estate with the older washing machines and dryers, there was a guy in town that would take them away for free, which was a pain in the ass for people who did buy the newest, latest, greatest. They would fix it up with parts and sell it to the secondary market, like rental owners or in
Yes, like landlords. That's where mine got everything.
Like, if you think about it, you got this entire universe, billions of people around the world now who don't have even an iPhone 3 yet or 4. And I'm not saying that they can all operate. Some of them go out of date with the software. But if you've got something that could be fixed, I see, for fascination, I see these amazing stories on YouTube of like a guy in a village in Pakistan who's literally taking apart a Ford truck starter motor and rebuilding it from scratch, because for them, it's impossible to find the part or to be able to pay for it. No, if you can't do that stuff, then we're just basically saying F you to everybody below the first buyer.
Yeah. So what do you reckon, Heather? Do you think this is a path that will just continue? I just feel that now there's a lot of kickback. There's a lot of pushback on all what Tesla, Apple's, a number of tech companies, saying that you can't even touch this and you can't even upgrade it. You bought it, for God's sake. It was your bloody dollars that bought it.
Well, I mean, there's the, you can't touch it and you can't change it. But all they're saying when you do that is that it's going to be out of warranty, and they don't want anything to do with it. But I mean, people are always going to jailbreak things. People, I mean, like the Africa thing, like, I remember the first time I went to Panama, I saw all of these New York City school buses from like the 70s that were down there, and those are what people use as their normal transit buses. And I'm like, oh. And the first time I was in Africa, and I was flying on a plane that was from the 50s, and this was like what they use as the planes. So it's like, oh, like these things just keep getting reused around the world. Like a cruise ship in like from a cruise line in Italy was sold from like when they're brand new in the Caribbean, they get sold to somebody else, and they get reused and reused and reused. And why not that with TVs? Why not that with refrigerators? Like there's like, I mean, my grandmother had her same refrigerator from like the first one she ever bought that just kept getting reused, and people still do that. Like, I mean,
when my father bought his house, the refrigerator was older than I was. You had to defrost it yourself. You know, but it kept running for another like probably 10 years before he finally got a modern fridge.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that look at us funny. I mean, like I had a TV that I bought. I mean, it was one of the LCDs or LEDs, like the brand new kind. And I got rid of it because I just didn't want to bother fixing it myself, but because like it just wasn't turning on. And I knew I could have fixed it if I bothered, but I mean, like it was only like $120. And for me, like that was nothing, but like I gave it to a kid to fix. And I was like, hey, you fix it, it's yours. And then this was a project for them, and they did fix it. And now they suddenly had like a 40-inch TV, and they were really excited. So yeah, I mean, I think you should be able to fix it. I don't think that the companies should support it. So that's all this is about.
Well, they really seem to. I mean, the
Well, definitely
stories you hear from the repair people
Yeah.
are that like Apple has come after them to try to force
Yeah,
them
that's the
not to
whole
do it and
point.
go out of business.
It's not. Yeah,
it's not simply the you will
they've
avoid the
serialized the
warranty, which is
parts, too.
totally legit.
It's not solely that heavy. It's that they're making it practically impossible. They're actively making it impossible for people to repair their kit. It's not that they're saying, well, your warranty, you know, we are not going to touch it anymore if you open the case. They're actively pursuing policies to stop other people from repairing it. That's the problem, isn't it, Eva?
Well, I think at some point they should just say like, okay, well, we don't really care. Like once something's obsoleted, they should not care anymore. They should just say like, okay, if you have an iPhone 6, we don't care if you repair it. If you have an iPhone 11, then we do care. So like if something's obsoleted, go ahead and repair it.
The problem that they're doing now with the
Oh, he's gone.
Whoops. Oh, that wasn't you muting him. Yes,
No,
Spencer's dropped.
Yeah, this guy doesn't do that in the web. Oh, he's back again.
Am I back?
You're back.
So what the problem becomes from is that they've started down the path of hardware, first of all, serialized parts and locking down all the components. And so, for example, like with the laptops, since the 2016 model, they've started making it that no components are replaceable at all. So you have to replace the entire motherboard, the chip for the memory and so forth. In the phones, they've, in the latest incarnation, serialized commonly broken parts. So for example, if your camera breaks or if your screen breaks, it used to be you go to any Tom, Dick, and Harry and they'd replace it. And it was inexpensive, $50. Now you can't do that because it is literally in the operating system of the new iPhone that the serial number for the part has to match or it fails to work. That is nefarious because that means that down the road, nobody could be a second or third repair person because Apple just doesn't make the parts. They won't give them the parts even if they had them. And that's what has to stop. And I think that's where this really becomes the focal point of before it gets farther down the road where we have 5 years of crap that nobody can work with, we need to stop this behavior and say, look, if you make proprietary stuff, you have to agree in advance that the parts are available, the diagrams are available, people can do what they want with it. Ta-da.
All right, I want to go on and finish with story 5 and then quickly wrap this up. I did want to cover story 5. You're not really building an LMS, you're building an online course. Now, I'm going to throw this over to Spencer. I found this article from Chris Lemmer extremely irritating, Spencer. Can you understand why I found it a bit irritating, or what was your own view about the article?
Well, I mean, first of all, Chris is very well known and he's very popular. Everybody needs to have an opinion. I do find that there are times that I don't agree with his recommendations, but I respect the fact that he comes at it from the standpoint of an example. I think that the basis for the conversational disagreement is that, and I do find there's some truth to it. Some people, if you have an LMS, only need 1 out of the 10 features that it can deliver. And so in that sense, like I ask people, do you, and even in WP Launchify thing, it's like, what are you trying to do here? If they've only got like 4 videos and they just want to protect it, it's really a membership site to get to 4 videos. It's not a learning management system. It's not an online education thing. On the other hand, if you have 4 courses with 40 lessons and quizzes and, you know, groups and all that, you need an LMS. You need a learning management system. So it's kind of like kitchen appliances. Do you need just a spatula, or do you need a blender, or do you need a food processor? I mean, they kind of all do the same thing, but you don't really call them the same tool, even though technically they're doing just stirring.
The thing I found really frustrating is he's got this person calling him Spencer, and this person, the first thing that, well, I can only go by what Chris described the conversation, that individual starting to talk about Kajabi in the first one sentence. Well, if somebody is looking at a platform of the level of Kajabi, they're looking at all the other elements that Kajabi brings to the table. You know, the marketing.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Because they could just be like, oh, I heard about this Kajabi thing and I want to offer some courses, versus really thinking about everything that it does and what's involved in it. I mean, I think Chris is absolutely right to say, you know, first get to that point of what is it you're really trying to do. And you know, one of the nice things about WP Launchify is that it helps you break down what are you really trying to do that you need stuff for. The thing that annoyed me about the article was that the last article I read by him was a, like, you know, best learning management tools in 2021 with a, you know, fairly strong push for the most expensive one. So it just seems kind of self-contradictory.
Well, then I want to get on to the real thing that which I wasn't realizing as I was reading it, I was getting hotter under the collar, and then I realized what was the real thing that was concerning me, and it's basically that you know, I get sponsors for the show, like Adam from WP Crafter. His whole business, well, part of his business, his initial business model was affiliate marketing, but and Adam can be a bit of a handful when he wants to be, but at least he makes it totally clear in his videos and in his posts that he is making income from affiliate marketing. Unfortunately, Chris Lemmer, you don't make it clear that you have business connections with a lot of the products that you're pushing. It's fine to make money from affiliate marketing, but I feel morally you've got to make it really clear that that you have a strong business connection with the thing that you're recommending. What do you reckon, Vito? Or am I being a bit proletarian and you know, just knocking Chris Lemmer, you know?
So first of all, there is a disclaimer at the bottom of the article straight away that says this post may contain affiliate links, and explains what that is, what is this policy around this, and so on, disclosure.
Well, okay, I got to inspect that to see
Fine.
exactly what size that font is.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's confused, and I don't think he needs.
So what my
I don't think he needs to be criticized for that, because everybody knows that Chris is in the business of doing affiliate marketing. That's the primary.
well, even if they don't know, like, why does it matter?
It
You know,
doesn't, right? It doesn't.
someone create a piece of content that he has the power to invite people. If they need what he's talking about, they need a solution. What does it matter if he's gonna take a few bucks from it? That's my biggest kind of a piece off about this entire thing about affiliate marketing. You know, like I haven't used affiliate links in a long time. We have a lot of people that are using our affiliate links in all kinds of ways. But when I really first started, I was selling fiats on Google ads, on Facebook and Facebook ads, you know, with affiliates, and was making a nice living as a 20-year-old. Like, if someone wanted the fiat, what's the problem? That's the whole thing. So from that point, I always get like a bit, you said, how did you say, like hot around the collar? I liked that term.
Well, I got very bumptious, and I started posted on the group, and I made a video which I decided to take down, and I really got on my high horse because I thought to myself, you're really pushing this, Chris, to the limit, and I've just found it a bit irritating.
So I don't see anything wrong about this. If someone is actually needing to get those tools, and so if Chris introduced them to those tools and they need it right now and they click the link, kudos to him. And everyone wins really with affiliate marketing. The guy that wrote the content, the guy that needed the tool, and the company that created it. So I don't see, there is no additional price or anything there. Around the content of it, I also agree with Chris, really, because a lot of times we would end up with clients that come to us with a misperception of what they really need. You know, like someone told them that they need this or that they needed that. Maybe it had affiliate links. I don't know, but someone told them that they needed Kajabi in this instance, but really they didn't. They just needed maybe even they just needed a Vimeo account with a locked password, you know, and so they say they would save a lot of money and a lot of headaches setting things up. So getting to the real why with a client is something that I will always advocate for. I think it's very important because you know, to us things seems obvious, but like, you know, like with a mechanic. You know, you would go there and you say, like, I don't know, this car is just crap, you know, and it's like,
no,
yeah.
you made a really good point there, which I really should have taken into account, is that Kajabi themselves are experts in marketing, and they got an enormous crowd on YouTube and on the internet pushing Kajabi as the all-embracing solution if you're looking to build a membership site, and you don't half the time you don't need it, do you? You know.
Yeah. Maybe it's overkill. Like what Spencer said there, sometimes you need like Elementor with 70 plugins and all of that kind of stuff, and sometimes you just need a landing page that is exported to a static HTML, and that's it. You're golden.
So Spencer, how do you deal with that when it comes to you've been preaching this stack approach, you know, and you know, modularizing it, and you've got these Lego bricks, as you put it. But what happens if they really don't need that stack? You know,
well, we were just talking about it. It's really a logical process. So over these last 14 years of interacting with so many individuals, both as an educator as well as one-on-one, it's really no different than being a doctor, right? You have a process. It hurts when I go like this. You
Right.
call the doctor says, why are you coming in? I have a pain in my shoulder. Then there's a triage. Do I talk to you first or the other person? Then you ask a series of questions. But the biggest difference about how this works in the latest days, which is what I'm so excited about, is there was the transitional phase from, let's say, the early 2000s up until 2014, where the components did not exist off the shelf to accomplish what you wanted. Then it went into the stage where the components existed in large numbers, but they were in the wrong spot. They were based on the theme or based upon something that wasn't really modular. But now we live in a place where all of the components are at the Lego block level. So the biggest problems, shiny ball syndrome, Frankenstein monster, comes from people taking or giving advice about things from 4 years ago, recommending like a plugin that gets in the way of 5 other new modules or components. And then the person ends up with a ton of extra confusion and pain. And this also applies to cross-platform. So I can't tell you how many people come to me and I start asking them, okay, what do you want to accomplish? What are the things you're using? Da-da. And they've got Kajabi mixed with Salesforce, mixed with a Zapier, connected to this thing over here with a plugin. And then I've got a membership thing connected with 4 different ways to take the money. I'm like, stop. Okay. When you go to the Lego store, you buy a kit for yourself, your kid. It has the certain shape, they all snap together and they work in a certain way. IKEA, same way. Well, here in WordPress, that's what we're doing with WP Launchify. We're saying, let us help you figure out what you really want so that it's very clear for your own benefit that you maybe don't need the whole LMS. Maybe all you need is just a way to host a video, take money, and do the following. And you can do it for yourself, or you can get help to do the further steps, but it's always going to be no code, no design. Very few times have we ever had to break that rule lately, which again is another pleasant change from the early days where when I met you, John, you were a student of mine at the time of how to build the thing with Bootstrap and HTML and PHP. It's like, we don't melt plastic anymore or carve furniture out of wood. We simply know, don't use this tool with that tool anymore because there's a different way to do it. And a lot of it has to do with marketing automation. A lot of it has to do with streamlining SEO, picking the proper plugin like Rank Math instead of Yoast and so forth. And although people can get surprised and annoyed that they've taken bad advice from other people, I tell them, don't feel bad because this thing is moving.
Just opinion.
This thing is moving at light speed. You know what I mean? Like what's true today is going to be different tomorrow. And that's the point. It's so exciting in WordPress. But don't buy into the bullshit that Jetpack is your savior or somebody told you something wrong because they're a bad person. They told you what they know, and that's what they knew at the time. But like hooking a wagon up to your Tesla, that would be ridiculous. Abandon the old stuff, move on to the new stuff. So that's how it works.
I just thought, well, let's wrap this up with our recommendations. And what was my recommendation? Let's have a quick look. I forgot myself. Well, it's Jeff Herring, and he's got a website, and he's a bit of an expert on content marketing. I've listened to a few of his videos and that, and I think if you're interested in content marketing on the internet and you know nothing about it, have a look at some of his videos and go to his website, and you might get some value from that. So, Vito, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Can I do another plug for the event next week?
Of course you can, and put the link into chat though. Right?
Yeah, come on in, join the party. Thousands of freelancers and agencies are all coming there to learn how to grow and scale their business in the biggest gathering in the WordPress space, atarim.io/summit.
I don't know how the bloody hell you've managed to do all this. Look, relaunch your main product, then this. So if you're up like 24 hours, well, you are up 24 hours a day because you've got a new baby, haven't you? So I suppose that's why you've done all this. There we go. Sally, got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yes, it's called Font Style Matcher. And this is a nice tool that lets you adjust things like your font size and your line height and your weight and your letter spacing and so on, so that your chosen web font and your fallback font actually don't have a bunch of shift in them. So, it's a bit tinkery, but it's it's kind of a fun tool to see, how close you can get. Their defaults are like Georgia is your fallback font, Merriweather is your Google font. And so if you are dealing with that cumulative layout shift on your fonts, this is a good place to go.
That's a cool tool. I like that.
Make sure that's in chat. Have a look at that myself. John, have you got anything to recommend to the listeners?
Yeah, and I'm going to recommend, this is mediaron.com/plugins. Ron Hurica from the WordPress community. He does not get nearly the amount of attention that he deserves, but he has a couple cool plugins. He has custom query blocks,
which is awesome.
Highlight and share, MetroNet tag manager, reorder posts, simple comment editing. He's got a lot of like different cool things here. So please come check these out and support him. He is a really good dude. So
well, make sure the link's in.
It's in
chat,
there,
and I'll make sure it's in the. You can find all the links and the recommendation of the panel in the show notes on the WP-Tonic website. That's normally up over the weekend, so on the Monday it's available with the podcast. So don't worry, listeners and viewers. You just need to go to the WP website, and you'll be able to get the link to whatever the panel is recommending. So, Spencer, what's your recommendation if you got one?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend that single file. I was calling it something else one page. It's called Single File. It's a Chrome extension, and it allows you to take a page built with anything, save it as a single HTML. All you need to do if you got a WordPress site.
Can you do that again? Oh, I love that. Yeah,
you could take the whole block, and then what you'll need to do is just make a new page, and preferably with your theme, use like your no header footer part of your theme. Plop the HTML in there on that page, and ta-da, you've got a page that will load like greased lightning as a static file, and it has all the components. There are very few things that will break if you just have like your basics, buttons and videos, but in some cases you may have a problem with like, YouTube embeds or something. But for a lot of landing pages, that's a great way to get a mix of the old and the new worlds to turn off that whole conversation. I do recommend too, since you said, for free, anybody who's listening should go to WPLaunchify.com and just go use the free evaluation tool to figure out if you need an LMS or if you just need certain plugins, because that's the kind of thing that we think will help almost everybody, whether you're an independent site owner or you're an agent of some kind.
No, I think on reflection, I have to modify my little piece on the group, because I think especially with Vito's analyzation of it, I probably got over touchy about it really, but that's why I wanted to bring it up. But thanks for that, Vito. So Vito, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
Come to the summit first of all, but you can also find me on Twitter, Vito Peleg, or visit our website at atarim.io.
Sally, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
I am at Sally Getch on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me at WPFangirl.com.
And John, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
2 places: my YouTube channel, just search for Lockdown SEO or John Lock SEO, or go to my website, lockdownseo.com.
And Spencer, how can people find out more about you and your thoughts and what you're up to?
Come on by the house. Otherwise, launchflows.com, WPLaunchify.com, or WPFusion.com.
That's great. It's been a mega episode. One of the panelists had to leave for obvious reasons, but I thought it was a superb discussion. Hopefully you can join us next week, where we'll be looking at all the latest WordPress stories and tech stories with another great panel. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.